The Atheist movie is a Christian fantasy. This is a vital point. This movie was made by fundamentalist Christians and represents what they think, desire, and hope to be true. I will now demonstrate why even in the fantasies of fundamentalists, logic and reason are absent. The summary. A man has his wife run over by a drunk driver, reads Dawkins, becomes an atheist, followed around always by a mysterious, brilliant lens flare that doesn't seem to face him or anyone else, gets run over by a car himself, and while unconscious, he has a holy vision. The first thing you realise is that the atheist has had his head shaved and is stripped naked. The usual first steps in removing the self-esteem of a man, used by most nations as a form of psychological torture to render the victim more pliable to suggestion. He also has a physical body, residual self-image maybe. He is greeted by a chatty clothed messenger who bears a stunning resemblance to a Christian caricature of Jesus, who tells him that God is real. Well, what else would you expect from a Christian fantasy? The angel then decides to read him a book about the crimes of the Turks. Curious, he leaves out the more virtuous chapters of Christian history. For instance, at the beginning of October 1641, the leading Catholic clergy met to discuss the course of action to be taken against the Protestant settlers. Some advocated banishment, while others felt extermination was the answer, because a banished man could come back with a sword in his hand. Wiser and safer to destroy them while they could. The orders relayed by the priests were on the same day the Irish people were to rise and depose the settlers and their families. Directions were given to drive them from their houses, strip them man, woman and child of their property, strip them even of the clothes off their back, to take such chances of life as the elements would allow in the late autumn amidst sleet and rain without food or covering. On the morning of October 23rd, 1641, they appeared before the houses of the settlers and their tenants, gangs of armed Irish, who demanded instant possession. On being admitted, ejected the families and stripped most of them to the skin. Many resisted and were killed. Many among the young men especially, who could save their own lives by flight, sought shelter for their women and little ones in the houses of their Irish neighbours, with whom they had lived in intimacy. The priests, however, told them it was a mortal sin to give relief or protection to the settlers. The helpless ones were often betrayed and murdered by their hosts, although there were a few exceptions. It's curious how the angel forgets these chapters in Christian history. It's also curious that the same angel forgets to mention that arguably the greatest genocide ever perpetrated was done by a Christian nation, by an army who had sworn a Christian oath of allegiance. Now it would appear that the angel of Christian fantasy has only read about the atrocities not committed in the name of the Christian God.
God is indeed good and benevolent, as the Holy Book bears witness to. And by the Holy Book, I mean the one that testifies of Yeshua the Messiah.
Yeshua, Jesus Christ.
Yes, of course. And also, everything God created is good. Evil was never part of the original plan. It was an intruder once man refused God's leadership.
And so the whole thing falls apart. According to the Bible, God put a man without the knowledge of good or evil in a garden with a fruit and told him not to touch it. But if you have no concept of good and evil, how would you know what is wrong? So God essentially punishes his own creation for not having an ability which he never gave him. This is what we call in science an internally inconsistent argument. In street terms, it's bullshit.
Shadows aren't things in of themselves. Man, I love donuts. But they're simply the absence of light. Just like evil. Evil isn't some black sticky goo that's floating around the atmosphere and kind of gloms onto people and makes them do awful things. Evil is simply the absence of good. It's not something present, it's something missing, a privation. Just like this donut hole, it's missing from the center.
Evil is the absence of good? Well, by this logic, the universe is evil. The universe is neither good nor bad, it's inanimate. So by the angel's reasoning, this makes the universe of God's creation absent of good, and therefore evil.
When God created man, he didn't only desire free creatures.
Fail. Freedom and society are mutually exclusive terms. If you wish to become a member of society, you must give up some freedom. The relationship is intrinsic. Eloquently summarized as justice is a price, the price is freedom.
He also desired plenitude, that is, the greatest good possible. And this requires more than general freedom, it requires moral freedom, and that necessarily entails the possibility of evil.
Fail. If you wanted a utopian society, there is no reason why an omnipotent being couldn't make one. I mean, take for instance Norway. Compare the plenitude of this largely godless nation to the barbaric Bronze Age cultures with slavery and women as second-class citizens as the typical ethics of the day that God and Jesus were evidently perfectly happy with.
You have chosen to sin, to do things your way. That's the evil of this world, Jeremy.
Ah, so sin is antisocial behaviour. An individual who chooses to live in a society, gaining the benefit from living in that society, but not to obey the constraints on freedom that society imposes.
Man is the cause for the way the world is, not God.
Who is this man?
That's Larry Stevenson, the man who killed your wife 5 years ago.
That's impossible. How do you know that?
He was arrested November 5th, 2004, California State Penitentiary, Cell Block 7.
No.
I'm sure of it.
I know what you're trying to do. I'm not going to do it. Every man has a right to live.
Just like it was your wife's?
No, please stop!
What have I done? I just killed this man.
Jeremy. Out of the heart proceed
No.
evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. Jeremy, do you understand
No,
now?
I don't. This man is dead.
Jeremy, listen to me, all right? Listen. Nobody diagnosed your heart as well as Jesus
Stop.
did.
No.
Do you understand now?
No, this man is dead.
Yes, he is.
Because of me.
Yes, and it came from your heart.
So, let's summarise. God strips someone naked, shaves them, gives them a gun, takes him to a drunk driver who killed his wife in a dark alley, and then when the atheist refuses to kill him, goads him into killing him, and then blames him for being evil. Yeah. Well, in this Christian fantasy, it's now impossible to tell the difference between the devil, who tempts people into doing evil, and God, who gives people a gun, takes them to a dark alley and says, wouldn't it feel good to pop a cap in his arse? Secondly, of course, any 12 good men and true would simply regard, in this case, the inciter of the crime to be as guilty of first-degree murder as the perpetrator. Evidently, God's idea of justice is at variance with the human concept of morality.
I just killed this man.
Jeremy. Out of the heart proceed
No.
evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies.
The angel now somehow lumps together murder, fornication, theft, false witness, and blasphemy as all evils of the heart. Oh dear. Some intrinsic limitations of civilization. Firstly, if you kill one person before childbearing age, your civilization is doomed. Low murder rates are a requirement for any society, be it wolves, ants, whales, humans, whatever. Secondly, a society without fornication is doomed after the first generation, yet the angel says it's evil. Maybe the angel doesn't know about the logistics of societies. Thirdly, false witness. You've got to be kidding me. The world is full of examples where lying is a virtuous thing to do for the greater good. For instance, if someone says, are you hiding any Jews in your basement? Would you say, well, I can't lie to you because that would make me evil in God's eyes, so yeah, they're hiding in the basement, feel free to ship them all off to the death camps. Fourth, theft. God would rather you starve and not be evil than have you steal from a corrupt man who has plenty. Fifth, blasphemy. Any statement of faith is blasphemy to another. So what's God saying in this Christian fantasy? That he wants no statements of faith? In any event, it doesn't matter, as the angel later tells our hero that, nah, you didn't really kill anyone, we were just fucking with your mind. Yep, that's right, after banging on for 10 minutes about how God is good and evil exists only in the hearts of men, it turns out that the God of Christian fantasy is just as happy to lie and be deceitful to achieve his goals as the most cynically minded cult leader is to keep his followers in line.
Who is this man?
That's Larry Stevenson, the man who killed your wife. Just relax. That wasn't the real Larry Stevenson.
Who is this man?
That's Larry Stevenson. That wasn't the real Larry Stevenson. Out of the heart proceed
No.
evil thoughts,
Murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts,
false witness, false witness.
False witness. False witness.